people are really pushing back in the digital rights world. And something that is winning nationwide now is a cause that's very near and dear to my heart. And you and I have talked about municipal broadband. Long Beach sent me this article. Thanks for turning me on to this, Long Beach. But check out what happened nationally recently. You know, Election Day did not give us a ton to smile about. At least here in California, some propositions went good, some did not. We had a couple. I mean, Nithya Raman's going to get on the city council, which is great. She's basically like a Shama Zawant style politician. She's
awesome.
She's going to be on the city council here in LA. She beat the corporate Democrat who was endorsed by Hillary Clinton. She beat him. Yeah. So there was some stuff to smile about, but there was also some stuff to frown about. Rent control or the potential for rent control still didn't make it here. We passed Prop 22, which is going to have disastrous effects for the entire country. You know, I'm happy Trump's going to go away, but then my happiness wears off when I realize, but that means Biden's coming in.
What, Ron? You don't think Biden can be pushed to the left? You don't think we can just poke him to the left a little bit?
Chris, when you learn in the art of negotiation, the first thing you learn is give somebody else everything they want, and then they'll give you something you want. That's how it went. What do you want from me? My vote? Okay, I'll give it to you, and then you'll do what I want, right? Who believes that? Who entertains that fantasy?
It's like the neoliberal business plan. You give me everything I want, and then I'll think about giving you something you want. You want healthcare? What about access to healthcare?
What about access to health? You have that now, by the way. You have access to healthcare, just like you have access to a Lamborghini. Oh, and by the way, as we're doing this show, they are deliberating over whether or not they're going to completely just gut the ACA, which is going to take us back even further. I love the fantasy in American politics where you can fix bad policy with worse policy. Like it just doesn't work that way. Like you don't fix bad policy with worse policy.
But Joe Biden's going to do it with compassion and empathy. He's gonna at least he's gonna gut it with compassion and empathy, Ron. That's what it is. He's bringing respectability to taking people's health care away. That's where I'm very excited about that shit. It's I mean, it's the same thing as like I've mentioned this a couple times. Is it should not have been this close if the Democrats actually put a candidate that was worth a damn.
Oh yeah, well if it was Bernie, we would have known that night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it would have been a blowout.
So funny. I was thinking, like, I'm seeing everybody online, and if you're a true conservative in this country, like, how are you sad ever? Like, how are you ever, like, have you ever thought about that? Like, how are you ever sad? Like, it's like, well, I might get 100% of what I want with no strings attached, or probably 100% of what I want, but they might say otherwise sometimes. Gee shucks. Like, what are you sad about? Like, Joe Biden would be considered far right in any other Democratic experiment. Like not just right. He'd be considered far right in any other Democratic experiment. And yet, like, so it's like, I'd be curious to talk to someone who's like just a genuinely conservative person. And I'd love to be, I'm like, what are you sad about? Like, you have everything. You have the courts, you have both parties, you have everything. Like how, if you don't like it here, like, you have to take a look at your ideology, because clearly, like, you're getting everything you want.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is that Fox News has convinced you that Joe Biden and whatever version of right wing he is basically socialist, which is insane and not true, and really an insult to socialism. But they've convinced themselves of that. So, like, any staunch Republican or any real conservative that I talk to that watches Fox News basically thinks that's what it is. And it's like, that's not. All right, I got some books you should read.
Are there pictures? They ask. All right, so getting to this, voters, here's some good news. You know, we're talking about the election and the bummer part of it. Well, here's a little bit of good news. Voters overwhelmingly back community broadband in Denver and Chicago. Voters in both cities made it clear they're fed up with monopolies like Comcast. Voters in both Denver and Chicago, this is from Vice, have overwhelmingly thrown support behind local community broadband projects, joining the hundreds of U.S. communities that have embraced homegrown alternatives to entrenched telecom monopolies. 90% of voters, roughly 90% in Chicago, approved it.
Wow.
So the referendum question was, should the city of Chicago act to ensure that all of the city's community areas have access to broadband internet? Now, the vote opens the door to treating broadband more like an essential utility. It passed with about 90%, baby. 90%. And of course, for anyone not in the know, this is an issue we do talk about on this show a lot. Municipal broadband is city-owned internet. So you would pay your internet bill the same way you would pay a utility bill, and your internet would be upkept by the city. Every city that has done this already exists in the United States. Every city that has done this, they get better internet at a better price than the big cable companies. Because internet infrastructure, it's not unattainable. It's not impossible. And by the way, cities of all sizes have done this. Major cities have done this. Chattanooga, Tennessee has some of the best internet in the world, not just in the country, in the freaking world. And Charlemont, Massachusetts, a city of 7,000 people, or I guess town of 7,000 people, did it. 7,000 people. They said, hey, Comcast, no thanks. So it doesn't matter how big or small your municipality is, this can be done. And there's organizations out there, Next Century Cities, the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, they do assessments and they figure out how to get it done in your area. Oh, and by the way, how much does it cost for a place to join Next Century Cities? Nothing. It's free. you can start looking into this for absolutely nothing. $0. And now 2 major cities are making a play for it. They're making a play. I mean, this is just the beginning. But dude, this is huge. And I think, it's a weird moment for this cause because, we're dealing with a pandemic. So the idea of like breaking ground on new internet infrastructure, some people are probably like, dude, there's a pandemic going on, which I get. The other side to it, though, has there ever been a time in our history where we're realizing how important the internet is in our life and how it is, in fact, a utility?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And especially right now, like you have COVID numbers going up all across the country. And there's like in Pennsylvania, they just said, yeah, don't do the holidays with your family. Don't do large gatherings. Try to do a virtual holiday thing. So it's so much more important for the internet to be a public utility. I was actually concerned at the beginning of the pandemic that Comcast and Verizon were going to try to increase rates for everybody, and try or just throttle speeds for people that want to keep their internet where it is and push it that way. But they didn't. They just didn't. They're just collecting money from.
Well, they certainly didn't do anything to help people either. Which I mean, again, one of the themes that we've really hit upon today is just like, whenever you have a situation where you're relying on corporate charity, basically, or just corporate accountability, not even charity, just corporate accountability, you're screwed. Yeah. YouTube. Why should YouTube give a shit about a creator, even though creators made YouTube possible? Without creators, there would be no YouTube. But why should they give a hoot about someone in a situation like yours? They don't. And when we're relying on them to potentially do the right thing, we're screwed. Same thing here. Well, when you're relying, I mean, in Philadelphia, they were relying on Comcast to put in a hotspot. And if Comcast didn't, these students weren't going to have access to the internet. And Comcast just said, well, we don't want to. We can't make enough money doing this. So you're relying on a for-profit entity that is one of the most unpopular companies in the world, not just in the country, in the fucking world.
Yeah.
You're relying on them to do the right thing. Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, this is a coup. This is a corporate coup. That's our country. We are a corporate coup. We are a corporation with state lines. But people are pushing back. This is people pushing back.
And you know what? Very large cities too. And I think this question has been brought up in Pittsburgh a couple different times. Can something like city-owned internet work? And we have a very neoliberal mayor that he's a Democrat that poses as a progressive because he has a beard. And he puts.
Doesn't everybody have a neoliberal mayor?
Yeah,
doesn't everybody? I mean, we do in LA too, man. I mean, although there's a small, I forget which town, but there's a town in Southern California just got a green mayor.
Dude, that's what I'm waiting for.
It's in the LA area. Man, it's bum. I'm drawing a blank to the name of the town, but yeah, the 26-year-old guy, 26-year-old Green Mayor. Yeah.
I'm waiting for someone to push back against Bill Peduto but
remember when he was the cool guy?
I know.
I mean, and now we're getting a little insider Pittsburgh baseball here, but like for me, I remember when Bill Peduto was the outsider and was the cool guy, and then it's like he changed a little bit when he got power.
Yeah, it's almost like the Obama effect of like you thought Obama was going to be the cool dude that's like going to bring hope and change, and then he got a taste of power and he went into the machine and he was just like, no, everything's good. Like, don't worry about changing the system. The system's awesome. Like, but even he basically came out and like he did the same thing with municipal broadband as he did with the UBI, where he was like, we need to really means test it. We need to see if this is even feasible for something like Pittsburgh. Oh, do we have the infrastructure to do it? Are we even big enough to do it? And now it's like you said.
The answer to all those questions is yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do the due diligence. Like, of course you have to do it. And if you go about it the wrong way, because there have been, for instances, just to be totally fair, there have been, for instances, where people, they rushed it or they didn't do the assessment the right way and they kind of just threw some money away, quite frankly. Right. That can't happen. Do your homework. But what I'm saying as an advocate for this stuff, there's so many resources out there to make sure you do it right, and they're attainable. Yeah. So it's like, all right, like I'm not saying don't do the due diligence. I'm saying do the due diligence, do it right. But like, too often there's this idea that it's unattainable because in reality, people just don't give a shit.
That's really what it boils down to is when you present something new and different that goes against the way that things have been working this whole time, even if the way that things have been working this whole time is frustrating and ineffective, people are still so resistant to that change. That's the biggest thing that everybody asks me is, oh, well, how are you going to get it done? How are you going to get it done? And, it's like, look at Chattanooga, look at Sandy, Oregon, look at these cities in Massachusetts. Like, they've been able to do it. Why can't you do it in a city like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia? Now that, Chicago and Detroit, who both those cities are way bigger than Pittsburgh, are saying that they're ready to try it. I think there needs to be a push.
I think it's Denver.
Oh, is it Denver?
Chicago and Denver. Did I say Detroit? If I said Detroit, I can't read.
No, I think that was
maybe I did say Detroit, and people looking, they were like, yeah, it's Denver. He just did that. He just did that. I thought I said Denver. Maybe I didn't.
But even Denver, Denver's significantly larger than Pittsburgh too. So it's like you can't say Pittsburgh's too big or too small anymore.
No, Pittsburgh can definitely do it. But here's a fun fact about the fact that it's Denver. In Colorado, Fort Collins approved it. Longmont got it. So this is one of those things. It spreads. It spreads. Cambridge was trying to get it in Massachusetts. So who else got it? Cape Cod got it. Yeah. And then Charlemont got it. So this stuff spreads. The most municipal broadband attempts in the country are going on where? Tennessee. Or at least some of the most. Tennessee. Why is that? Because of Chattanooga. Chattanooga, they have some of the best internet in the world. They pay less than most people pay. People in Chattanooga pay about $67 a month for faster internet than you've likely ever experienced.
That's awesome.
That's less. I pay more than that. I pay more than that for internet that, my internet's okay, but I wish it was better. I'm always wishing it was better. They pay. And again, it's also the principle of net neutrality gets preserved when you do municipal broadband because it's written into the charters. And it's definitely a big step in the right direction for digital rights in general. So Denver saw these other places getting it. They're like, we're getting it. And that's just the end of it.
I feel I feel like this is one of the two things that's like really exciting to come out of this election. It's that and basically like every legalization measure. Oh God.
There's been some good legalization. Yeah, there were definitely some bright spots in this election. Yeah. I'm not going to say there weren't. Overall, I think the best way I can put it, just to kind of have a sense of humor about it all too, is like the cliche is you win some, you lose some. If you're on the left in America, the saying is you lose all, but occasionally there's a few bright spots that keep you going. It's like if you're on the real left, it's got to be like, oh, geez. I mean, people who have been fighting the fight for like ever. I'm just like, man, when do you? I mean, I applaud people because it's just like, I mean,
Yeah.
all I know is losing. Like that's all I know is losing. Like that's it. Like it's just losing and losing and losing and losing. And occasionally it's like, okay, this is a step in a better direction. This is breathing room. This is like, I mean, but I guess, you know, this is just a really right-wing country at the end of the day. I mean, it's just like, you know, well, there's progressive places like California. No, dude, I've lived in the Midwest. I've lived in the South. I've lived in the Northwest. I live in California now. There are no progressive places in the United States. Doesn't exist. Just doesn't exist. I've spent time in Massachusetts. I've spent time in Chicago. I've spent time in Michigan. You know, I mean, you know the drill. You travel the country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are no progressive places. There just aren't. It's not a thing here. There are places that are, you know, a little more, a little less authoritarian theocracy than others, sure, but there is no progressive place in the United States.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together